So something serious is happening in the crypto world right now, as in days away. The OKX Europe CEO just came out and said something that shook a lot of people. He said up to 80% of crypto exchanges may not survive what is coming on July 1st, 2026. Now, before I talk about that, I want to ask you pioneers one question. When we say Pi Network is going for global adoption, what does global actually mean? Because here is the honest truth that nobody is really saying. If Pi Network cannot enter the two biggest, most powerful crypto markets on this earth, Europe and the United States, then global adoption is just a slogan, useless in practice. So I'm going to explain and clarify what MiCA is, what the CLARITY Act is, what Pi has already done about both of them, why all of it matters so much to Pi's future, and the honest truth about what happens if Pi cannot break through. So first, MiCA. MiCA stands for Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation. It is the European Union's law that now governs every crypto exchange, every token, every trading platform that wants to operate in Europe. Simple as that. MiCA introduced an 18-month transition period that allowed many crypto companies to continue operating while they were applying for authorization. That transition period ends on July 1st, 2026. See, every crypto asset service provider that is operating in the EU without a valid license will be in breach of EU law and must immediately stop services to European customers. If you don't have the license, you leave Europe. No negotiation. Now, in the United States, a different but equally important thing is happening. For years, the American crypto market has been operating without a clear rule book, but that is changing. Now, CLARITY Act. Look, at its core, the CLARITY Act is basically the US government trying to answer one simple question. Is a crypto token a security or a commodity? That question matters because the answer determines who regulates it, the SEC or the CFTC. For years, nobody knew, and that kept a lot of serious money and big exchanges away from crypto. Where it stands now, it passed a Senate committee vote in May 2026 and is moving towards a full Senate vote. Polymarket gives it a 67% chance of becoming law in 2026.
But ultimately, because of President Trump, we're making a lot of progress. We passed the Genius Act. Next week, we're going to mark up the CLARITY Act in the Senate, which is a big deal. Can we get an amen for that one? And
it's not signed yet, but it's the closest any US crypto law has ever gotten. Once it passes, every crypto project, including Pi, will know exactly where it stands under US law. That's why it matters for Pi's future. See, MiCA and the CLARITY Act are for two different markets, two regulatory instruments, but the same direction. Now, here is the part that many pioneers don't know, and this one is actually the most important part of this video. Look, while most of the crypto world was still figuring out how to respond to MiCA, Pi had already made a move. On November 19, 2025, Pi Network's affiliate PiBit Limited officially submitted its MiCA white paper to ESMA, the EU's financial markets authority. Pi named the countries Germany, France, Italy. Named the exchanges OKX and OKCoin, both already MiCA licensed in Malta. Filed the paperwork months before the deadline. Now, I want to be honest with you here because this community deserves straight talk. Look, registration is not the same thing as endorsement. ESMA registering the white paper only records the disclosure. It does not mean Pi is approved. The filing is currently in due diligence. We're waiting for the outcome. That is where things stand right now, honestly. And the KYC that every pioneer has gone through? See, robust identity verification is one of the core pillars of MiCA compliance. And Pi's work towards global uniformity in its KYC processes is exactly what is strengthening its position with European regulators. Look, Europe and the United States are not just big markets. They are the markets that determine whether a crypto project is taken seriously by the rest of the world. If Pi cannot get listed on compliant European exchanges, it cannot reach European users legally. If the CLARITY Act passes and Pi is not positioned for the US market, America remains closed. And I want to say something honest here. For pioneers, mostly in developing countries, the community is real. But if Pi is only available in emerging markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, and African countries without breaking into Europe and America, the vision the core team has always talked about cannot fully happen. Those markets are where the institutional investors are, where the regulated exchange depth is, where the payment infrastructure exists to support everyday commerce at scale. Without them, Pi remains a community, a strong one, but not a global digital economy. Look, here is what I want you to take away from this. MiCA and the CLARITY Act are not the enemy of Pi. They are actually the opportunity, because they are weeding out every project that built on speculation, on shortcuts. See, Europe's MiCA regulations prohibit speculative crypto models. The projects that will survive are the ones that prioritize compliance, sustainability, and long-term utility. Pi was never built on hype. It was built slowly, with KYC at the foundation and utility as the goal. That foundation is exactly what these regulations are rewarding. The filing is done. The review is happening. Look, MiCA, the CLARITY Act, the PiBit filing, the ESMA registration. These are not just big grammar and regulatory jargon. They are the actual steps Pi needs to take to reach global adoption. I'll keep bringing you honest updates as things develop.